Hey, it's me, MLV. Here is Touched Chapter 21. This is titled Dinner at Yin's House. Hawks chatted on about something as you listened quietly, your mind going 100 miles per hour, trying to come up with a reason for Hawks not to walk you back to your old house. I mean, I know where the spare key is, you thought. I could just see if it's there and go in, and then leave when he leaves. But what if the house is already sold to another family, and they're home? Hawks continued with his story, watching you from the corner of his eye. He wanted to see if you'd break and tell him that you'd moved house. When he had come to your rescue that day, he had seen you come out of the apartments, but by the time that he got to you, you were already out the front gate, and it looked like that you'd just been bailed up by the cocky removalist guy as you walked past. Because you hadn't said anything to him about moving house, he figured that you didn't want him to know about it, so he pretended that he didn't. He just guessed that it had something to do with your father, and considering that he wasn't supposed to know anything about him or the whole quirk thing, he kept his mouth shut. He also wanted to test where he stood on your trust scale, and so far he felt like your trust in him was very low, which he understood completely, considering what your dad had drilled into you from a very young age. He had been impressed with how well you'd kept your mouth shut though, up until this point, but you were about to come undone very quickly. As you got close to your old place, you started to slow down. You okay? Hawks asked when he noticed the pace had dropped. Hawks, you said softly, not looking at him. I need to tell you something. What is it, chicken? He asked tenderly. We moved house, my mum and I. Oh, you did? Why didn't you say so? Hawks asked with a gentle smile. You don't trust me, Yin? He asked, and you looked up at him sympathetically. He had a neutral look on his face, didn't seem particularly hurt by the fact that you hadn't confided in him about moving, but you still felt bad. No, it's not that, it's... You dropped your gaze again. Yes? He asked, tilting his head to the side curiously. We needed to get away from sad memories, you said softly. Whoops, almost said bad memories, you thought. Just then he put a hand on your arm, and you looked up at him again. I wouldn't go any further towards your house if I were you anyway, he said lowly. What do you mean? You asked, looking around. Ian, was your dad in trouble or something? Is that why he left? Hawks probed. He knew the truth, but he wanted to see how much you'd tell him. I don't know why, you lied. Because there are some people staking out your old house, Hawks said as he looked up from you, down the road in the direction of the house. How do you know that? You asked in surprise. Feathers, babe, he said, still looking off in the distance. They're talking about you. They said your name. You can hear them? You gasped in shock. He nodded, still listening. It's not safe here. Come back to my place, he said. No, wait. Come to mine. Come for dinner, you blurted out. My mum has plenty of food. Are you sure? He asked, looking back at you. Yes, I trust you. She'd like to see you again too, you said with a smile. Okay, which street are you on? I'll fly us there, he said, taking your hand and pulling you against himself. Suckma Street, you mumbled into his chest. Oh, yeah, I know the one. Got a ball court at the end, he said casually as he spread his wings. Don't scream now, he said with a chuckle as he shot up into the air. You clamped your mouth shut and grabbed onto Hawks with all your strength. He held you close as he flew quickly to your street. Okay, here we are, he said as he alighted halfway down the road. You let go of him and tried to take a shaky step back, but your knees went weak and you buckled slightly. Whoa there, drunken miss, Hawks laughed. Here, hold my arm, he said, extending his arm out for you to hold on to. You held onto it and pointed a shaky finger down the street to the block of apartments. That's where we are, you whispered, still focused on trying not to pass out. He smiled and you both walked down the road to your place. You were feeling better by the time you reached your apartment and pulled your keys out of your pocket and placed it in the lock. You let go of Hawks's arm and placed your finger to your lips deviously in a shh sign to indicate to him to stay silent. He smirked and pretended to zip his mouth closed as you unlocked the door and led him inside silently. You took his hand and walked him to the kitchen, sneaking through the door. Your mum had her back to you as you entered, so you quickly sat Hawks down in a chair at the table with a smile and then turned to your mum. I'm back, you said suddenly, and your mum jumped and spun around. Yin, she gasped. Then she saw Hawks sitting casually in the chair at the table with a bright smile on his face, and she nearly passed out. Oh, my hat, Hawks! She cried, slapping her hands to her cheeks in surprise. You laughed, and Hawks looked happily from you to your mum. Hey, Mrs. Lynn. he said with a chuckle as he got up and walked over to her. Forgive me for intruding like this. Oh, not at all, Hawks. To what do we owe the pleasure, she gushed, as he bent his head to the side and kissed her cheek in greeting. You were gobsmacked. This smooth mother trucker, you thought. I bumped into Yin at the shops and she invited me back, he said to your mum with a smile. I hope that's okay. Wow, he just effortlessly glossed over the whole other bit in there, you thought with a chuckle. Not at all, your mum said emphatically. We have plenty of food. I'm making Yin's favourite tonight. Are you? He asked. I'd love to try some of her favourite dish. He looked over at you and winked. My, your mum gushed again. You seem very familiar with my daughter. Well, we do see each other a lot at work, he said with an endearing smile. So I've gotten to know her over the past few months. She's a beautiful girl, Miss Lynn. You've raised her well, he complimented. I'm right here, guys, you deadpanned from the doorway. Hawks laughed. She's good fun, too. Your mum was overjoyed, and you could almost see the wedding bells in her eyes. You groaned and covered your face. Your mum and Hawks chuckled together. Oh, I can't deal with these two, you thought. After dinner, Hawks offered to help with the dishes, but your mum refused. We have a dishwasher, Hawks. It doesn't take long to load, she said with a chuckle. Please don't rush home now that we've finished dinner. You and Yin spend some time together, she added with a devious smile and a twinkle in her eye. Okay, if you insist, Miss Lynn, he said with a smile at you as he stood up. I'll at least carry the plates to the sink for you. Oh, thank you, your mum said gratefully. And that's the end of chapter 21. Stay tuned for chapter 22. It's a doozy.